All right, y'all. Today is the day that we've been waiting for all year. Can anyone agree with me on the panel? Today is the day that we've been waiting on all year. Today is the aftermath of the day that I think a lot of us have been waiting on all year. Today, but we're gonna keep it real light. We're gonna move forward. I'm Constance, and it's official that Donald, excuse me, y'all. Donald J. Trump is now the I don't know if I could say it. He's the president of the United States. So whether you love or you hate his approach, it's important to understand the direction the country is heading and how we can spin these policies to benefit us. Because that's what we need to focus on right now. Ain't no sense in crying over spilled milk. We just have to move forward and figure out how we can best utilize these to support us, Black people. Be one. From the economic changes to healthcare and immigration, we are going to break down what Trump's policies mean for us and how we can use them to strengthen our communities. So, I want to talk to you today about strategy and how we can turn what's coming into something that works for us. It's your girl, Constance Carter. We have Dr. Felice. She is a therapist and the B.Big coach. We got Miss Vanessa. She is an entrepreneur and a policy specialist. Moya, the tax professional and the business coach. And we have Jade, Miss Lioness, crown of day, back. She's an educator and she is a political strategist. And we are so excited to be here today. Now, let me ask you, Dr. Felice, I'm going to start with you. When you saw which direction this was going, what was your first thought? We can't hear you.
I'm going to be honest and transparent. I kind of predicted he was going to win. And I'm just coming from the standpoint that I just knew how hard it was going to be with her only having 107 days to really do her thing and how long Biden took to get out of the race. I just knew that it was going to be a really big uphill battle for her. And she did great, but I just didn't expect her to win. So I wasn't shocked when I heard that Trump won. And so I wasn't shocked. I was a little disheartened, because, I was hoping for her. And she really did garner she did phenomenal. I mean, for just 107 days, for her to get as far as she did, I hope she's patting herself on the back. And I'm just remaining hopeful because this shows us what we can do. Now we just have to come back to the table and figure out, okay, what do we need to do 4 years from now?
Yeah.
So that's my honesty.
Okay. What about you, Moya? What was your first thought when you found out that who the new president of the United States is?
My first thought was I need to go to sleep. Like I was over the whole process. I'm like, this is too much. Yeah, I think it's important to have these discussions so we have an idea of what's needed to move forward.
Okay. What about you, Miss Vanessa? What was your first thought that came to mind when you found out that Donald Trump was the president?
I'm going to start this off with a quote that I read. It says, "When you allow a clown into the palace, he does not become a king. The palace becomes a circus."
Ooh.
I'm going to start by saying that. But I want to say I expected it, right? I in no way, unfortunately, I was hopeful, but I was practical, right? So I in no way thought that they were going to allow a Black woman be president. In addition to, I feel like Kamala should have came with a little bit more, a better plan for her base. But in all fairness, she only had a little over 100 days. So, the Democratic Party really dropped the ball in terms of planning and really taking this seriously. And I think they're paying for it across the Senate and the House as well. But I mean, we've seen the palace be a circus before, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But that's my thought is we're about to see a circus happen. So we will talk about how we can best work within the circus.
Okay. The lion is crowned. What are your thoughts? What was the first thing you thought?
Well, the first thing I thought was, I've never done shrooms before, and would this be a good time to try it? I was like, I mean, hey, what's this? This can't be real, right? But anyway, all jokes aside, I suspected that he had a really great chance of winning. Um, I was very, very concerned that they allowed Joe Biden to just take the nomination in the first place, and that they didn't have like an open primary to see if there would be other candidates that would be a better fit to run a real campaign, and that they didn't have anyone in place to sort of do that. And Gavin Newsom would have been a better candidate. He could have really taken on Trump. I mean, whether he would have appealed to the rest of Americans, I don't know. But the process that the Democrats used in this election was horrible. And it's just, it's a testament as to why I left the Democrat Party. I'm a proud registered independent. This was my first election actually voting as an independent. And I just feel like the Democrats dropped the ball in many, many ways. And I do agree that VP Harris did the best that she could have done within 100 days. And you can't win a presidential election in just 100 days. So I think that the Democrat Party has a lot of like re-strategizing to do, and they need a viable plan to push forward if they're serious about their policies, and if they're serious about actually doing something that's going to appeal to the average Black voter.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to follow that up with, what does this say about the temperament of America right now? For you, Jade.
Well, the temperament in America is like, people are tired of what we're seeing with the economy. I mean, how much is a carton of eggs cost these days? Everything, like the inflation has gone up. There's issues at the border. And I think Americans have taken a stance that they want to see something different. And for many reasons, they felt more comfortable under a Donald J. Trump administration versus a Biden Harris administration. And we know that if VP Harris would have won, it was just been a continuation with those policies. Also, the conflict in the Middle East was a deal breaker to our Muslim American voters and other humanitarians such as myself. So it's showing that like the liberal strategies and talking points and the way that they're doing things, Americans are leaning more conservatively. That's what I'm saying. We're seeing that the Republicans have also taken over control of the Senate, and they will probably do the same thing in the House of Representatives too.
Mm-hmm. Moya, what do you think about what this says about the temperament of America?
I definitely can see this. So one of the things I think it's important to insert in the conversation is that even though Biden or Harris, the Democratic has had a foundation. They've had field offices going for over 4 years in terms of preparing a base. The thing that makes this very interesting is the Democrats had a strong volunteer base and a strong base that did fundraising for them, while the Republicans, they outsourced. This was the first time they outsourced their actual outreach to their base. So they didn't even have people that were motivated and inspired by the issues knocking on doors and getting people to vote. So in addition to that, I really feel like, and when we talk about Black people and Black women, like Black women and Black men, they voted at exponential rates, like in terms of what we've seen. So the question really is, how does the rest of America feel about us? And I feel like we're going to see that, especially when you have people like Latinos that are voting against their own, what I believe would be something that would be important to them when it comes to deportation and immigration. So one of the things that people do say about the Democratic Party is that they focus more on social issues instead of economic issues, even though despite the fact that they have more economic success in terms of for the people, majority of the people, while Republicans have more success for those that are higher in income. So I just feel like it's very interesting that people vote against their morals and they claim it's for the economy, even though it still doesn't help them in the long run with the economy and with what they think.
Sounds like it's a lot of race voting. What do you think, Dr. Felice? The temperament, what does it say about the temperament of America?
I think that people are extremely fatigued. I think that people are extremely stressed, anxiety ridden. I think they're filled with a lot of tension. I think a lot of people are angry and frustrated um, when you know that you are living from paycheck to paycheck and you have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to buy these eggs or you're going to pay this light bill. I think they had enough. And I think at the end of the day, it's always about the dollar. And if you don't take care of Americans and make sure that they can take care of themselves and survive, that should have been the top of mind issue. That should have been it. And that's what people were saying that. Like, my daughter, like, she applied 300 times to get her student loans taken off her plate. Like, these issues were big to people. And so they didn't pay attention to that. And, I was a little upset and perturbed with the Democratic Party because we knew we didn't want Biden again.
Mm-hmm.
We knew it. And they took forever and 2 decades to take him off the ballot, to make sure that he, and they took too long. And I don't know what that was about. And so I just think that, and then also, you start to think about Americans, they have a scarcity mindset, right? And so they always, grabbing to survive. And so I just think that I think Trump had to win. He had to win based on economics alone. If you think about immigration, at the end of the day, immigration is about economics. And so it's all about economy, and people are they're tired. They're afraid. They don't have health care. Healthcare is horrible. It's all these
Who
things.
don't have health care? Don't they still have Affordable Health Care Act? Isn't that still in place?
That's still in place. But the question is, if they feel like they didn't have health care, they feel like the people that want to repeal it is the one that's the
Right, the one they voted for.
I just think people don't read.
Yeah. Vanessa, I'm going to go to you and then we'll go to commercial. What do you think this says about the temperament of America?
I mean, I think the temperament of America has been pretty consistent. I think it's just I think we've had a few years of hope and that it's changed. But I mean, we've seen that overall, in a lot of these states, a lot of their values and a lot of things that they believe in, and the fear of America becoming something different or somebody else being in power is the biggest threat to America. And I think they voted on that. In addition to, of course, we have inflation. There's a few issues. I think that we had I believe 1.5 million Muslim voters that they lost big in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania because of the way that they've been handling Israel and Palestine. I think that Democrats need to speak to their base and listen to their base. And the way that they handled this whole election, in general, Biden should have got the boot. Biden should have never, ever been elected. Anybody should have been, in front of the Democratic ticket before Biden, right? Anybody. Someone commented on Gavin Newsom saying that he was a horrible pick for something that Jade had made, a comment that Jade just made. But I will remind you that California has the fifth largest economy in the world, not the nation, but the world. So when we're talking about actually economic policies, California is, I believe, #1 in the nation. It might be #1 or 2. I have to double fact check that. But if we're voting on economic policies, if Black people care about economic policies, then maybe we should start looking at the states who are doing well economically, who are succeeding economically, and stop looking at states like Louisiana and Mississippi and quit voting that way, because those states are failing. So I think that it's also a combination of people not reading, not looking at history. I mean, we've been here before. And, I'm going to talk about that later when we get into some of the questions that you have, Constance, but we've been here before.
You know, what's funny is that Doctor said that why did they wait so long? They waited till that man started drooling on people before they kicked him out of the race. It's like, yo, and, like, come on. Like, this man is like petting people and he has lost his mind, and y'all wait into the very end. It says so much about America. And the other thing that I think is that when we look at 2020, I think he won. I think he had less votes. He had less Republican votes this election, even though he won by so much. He had less Republican votes this election than he did last election. And Kamala had way less Democratic votes than Biden did. So I think he had 86 million votes. She had, she had 66 million votes. Last election, he had 80 million votes. And so last election, Donald Trump had 71 million votes. This election, he had 74 million votes. This year, he had 71 million votes. So it's not that that more people are voting for him. It was just less people were voting for her. Think about that. So let's go to a commercial and we'll talk about that when we get back.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am Tiara Williams. I'm also known as Miss Black Hollywood, and I am the proud producer of this show. So I hope that every day when you join us, you leave a little smarter than you came, because that's the point. Otherwise, why are you watching? So if you want to receive notices for when we go live, Fly Nubian Money goes live every single day. That's Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't know, now you know. All you have to do is text the word Queens. That's Queens. That's Queens to 87948. That's 87948. That's Queens to 87948. Yes? If you want
Queens at 87948. Please text word Queens to 87948 so that you can get notified every time we go live. So let me ask you all a question, because there is a huge disparity of the people who went to the polls and they voted. Less Democrats came out and voted for their president, for their candidate. And then when you have a breakdown by group, by male, female, race, we're seeing in record numbers that Hispanic men and women and white women are the ones that have voted for Donald Trump. And so, when we look at like DEI issues, affirmative action issues, and all those things that our people have fought so long and hard for, how they have been able to take advantage of them, right? White women get affirmative action and DEI more than anybody else. Okay. But yet they vote for someone who wants to take it away. What does that say about white privilege, or what does that say about the mindset of these people who are actually voting for them? I want to start with you, Jade.
Cognitive dissonance. I think cognitive dissonance is the best way to put it. Folks are voting outside of their own interests. And at the end of the day, I think that, listen, folks respect power. And unfortunately, too many folks respect white power, right? And so we see that folks will rather side with white supremacy or white supremacist candidates and policies versus honoring themselves and actually being agents of change. So they will say they want one thing, but then they'll vote counterintuitively because in their minds, subconsciously, I believe they think that they will gain some greater proximity to whiteness or something. I don't really understand the mindset, but it's really, really interesting how folks will say they are anti-affirmative action, anti-DEI, anti all of these things, and still benefit from it, and then install people that will not support those policies. So I don't know.
Absolutely. What about you? What you think, Moya, about that? The idea that more white women benefit from DEI, affirmative action, but they are voting for someone who wants it all gone.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you pointed that out. I think it's really important that we really understand who benefits and who worked hard, and how these groups are coming in off of the hard work from on our backs, and voting in ways that don't align with what we believe in. I do want to highlight something. I think it was, I don't know if it was Jade or Vanessa, highlighted about Michigan and the Muslims not turning out. So one of the things that it's important to understand is when I say the Republicans and Donald Trump, they had a lot of misinformation going out. They spent a lot of time, for example, for Michigan, they sent out people who they identified as Muslims. They sent them out mailers stating that Kamala is not, she's against what they're looking for. And they did the same thing with Jewish people. And they did the same thing with people saying that they're pro-Israel. So I think that they understood the psychological, and I think Dr. Alicia brought this up yesterday, the psychographics of each demographic, and they knew how to pin that and point that against each other. So therefore, it made them feel, one, as if their voice didn't matter, and two, the person that is appearing to advocate for them really doesn't advocate for them because they've already bombarded them with so much information in their brain that they weren't able to decipher the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. What about you, Dr. Felice?
So a lot of these other races, they don't see their true ethnicities and they benefit from our fight, right? And so we work harder but not smarter, where they do the opposite. They watch white privilege and see how they do things. And they're also village oriented, right? So they all work together and strategize. We don't. We're just very emotional, but we're not strategizing. We're not getting together. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of us are. Like the wealthy Blacks, they are getting together and forming masterminds and doing things so that they can build wealth. But for the most part, the majority of our people, they're not doing the same things. And so all these other groups benefit from our fight and our struggle. They benefit from DEI. And so, but they don't think of it in the same way that we do, right? So they vote and do things based upon their value system, not necessarily based upon their race and how they might be discriminated against or what it means for them. Mm-hmm. It's a different way that they go about doing things. And so we're going to have to take a step back, and we're going to have to look at the data. And we're going to have to look at our reality, and we're going to have to regroup. Just like you said, we got to watch California. States need to watch California. We need to watch these other ethnicities and say, what are they doing that we're not? Mm-hmm. And we have to regroup and figure out, how do we get on track again? Because we used to do and work a certain way where we work together, and we didn't necessarily need DEI to get what we needed done.
You're right.
And so I'm just saying that a lot of times what privilege doesn't recognize is that sometimes they bite off their own hands. Mm-hmm. So you think you're getting ready to get rid of DEI and you think that's going to cause something for us. What it's going to do is cause us to regroup, strategize,
that part,
get back on track, get back to our roots and get back on top. And that's what I think is going to happen.
That's exactly what we need to do. You know, one of the problems with Black people is we are so welcoming. You know what I'm saying? We welcome everybody into our fight. Instead of saying Black issues be one, we say we people of color. We say Black and brown. We want to include everybody in the fight. Most Black people don't even agree with the LGBT agenda or the trans agenda. The greater majority of us don't, but we add them into our fight too, which actually diminishes our power. It does. And so when you have everybody joining in the group, everybody benefited from it. But then when it comes time to vote, where they going? Who they voting for? White men. Of course, we know 59% of them were going to vote for Donald Trump. Absolutely. But white women who are acting like they was our allies because they benefiting from all the things that we fought so hard for, 52% of these white women voted for Donald Trump. Black men. Now, this is interesting because less Black men voted for Kamala than they voted for Biden. However, Black men still came out. 78. The greater majority of Black men voted for Kamala, and only 20% voted for Trump. Black women, we represented. We did our thizzle. I'm so proud of us. This is what's interesting right here. These Latinos who think that they are white, who don't identify with our struggle, but they benefit from it. 54% of Latino men voted for Trump, and 37% of Latino women, which for me, it really makes me look and say, okay, we know who our allies are. We know who our allies aren't. We know the people who are looking out for us, and we know who the people who aren't. This right here should galvanize us, just like you said, Dr. Felice. It should galvanize us to come together and with one goal, and that's to build our community. If this don't tell us nothing, I don't know what to do. We got to get on code with this.
And Constance, it took a white comedian to say something derogatory for the Latinas to see that they look at you just like they look at us. To them, you are Black. Mm-hmm. You might as well be. It took that. And when they
still went to the polls, though. They still went to the polls.
Going to figure it out that they don't consider you? Like, what is it going to take for you to recognize that you just like us?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they don't see it. And
Yeah.
it's incredible to me.
Vanessa, go ahead, and then we got to go to a commercial.
I was just gonna say, I think that the difference is it's the same thing. When you earn something, you look at it differently, right? You look at it differently. When you don't have to work for it, you don't value it. So a
Right.
lot of these people that are coming into these countries, they're not learning about the accomplishments and of Black people in America. They just walk around like it's, oh, this is an act. The reason why you can just show up and vote is because of Black people. That is the reason. That is the reason, because Black people went to basically war. You had Lyndon B. Johnson militarizing the police after, because of Black people were going so hard to change the way that the system treated us. So now they walk up to the polls and they don't have any idea of the history and the work and the sacrifice and the deaths that were sacrificed for them to walk up and vote. They have no respect for Black people in this country. So if you're not taught about it, if you don't know anything about it, then you don't care about it. You didn't work for it. You don't know anything about it. You don't know the history of it. So I think for the large population of people coming to this country, they reap all the benefits. A lot of them that derive from the backs of our ancestors, our grandparents, our mothers, my father in this case, and they just go about their day. So it doesn't resonate with them the way that it resonates with us when you just show up and you back roll all of these laws and all of these policies that we've put into place to help really us, but everybody.
Yeah.
So I think the important thing is for us to look at the history of the presidents, like all the stuff, Lyndon B. Johnson militarized the police, followed by Nixon, who gave a ton of money to, police and created the war on drugs, which led to Black men being out of the family, mass incarceration. And then this was, carried out through the Reagan administration, through the Clinton administration, through the Bush administration, and so when we look at the policies of Donald Trump now, he wants to give a ton of money, the same federal funding that, came under Nixon and Reagan, the same route as what they did. So we have to get in front of it and recognize that, okay, what happened then? Because it's going to be a repetitive cycle if we don't get in front of it and grab our brothers and our community members and say, we need to get our children in line. So I think this will be a great, great moment for us as Black people to come together and start focusing on our community and stop worrying about what they're doing, because we've seen it happen before. We've
That
seen
part
what the
right there.
cycle is being set up for.
Well, this is great. I mean, if this doesn't do anything to wake us up as Black people, I don't know what will. Because I tell you how I felt when I woke. First of all, when I went to sleep, I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God, because I went to sleep before I found out. When I woke up, I was like, God damn it. And so I was just like, you know what? This just gives me more motivation to make sure that we continue the conversation around practicing collective economics, around what we have to do as Black people. If this doesn't light a fire under us, I don't know what will. Because first of all, the Democrats wasn't going to save us in the first place. We already know that. We know that. But this is further confirmation that they don't give a fuck about us. And so nobody is coming to save Black people except for Black people. We got to be B1 on code, us first, and not give a fuck about nobody else. Because the white folks don't give a damn about us. The Hispanics don't give a damn about us. The Muslims don't give a damn about us. They don't. We got to care about us. Everybody else cares about their families, their communities, their neighborhoods. They ain't thinking about you Black people. We need to be doing the same thing. Let's go to commercial. We'll talk about it when we get back.
You want to grow your money and not blow your money, as Constance says, check us out at flynubianmoney.com. There's all kinds of resources, programs, videos, resources. In 2024, there's no reason to be broke when there's information all around us. So get your money right. flynubianmoney.com.
So the whole idea, okay, because it's not doom and gloom for us Black people. Jade, it's not doom and gloom. Vanessa, Moya, Dr. Felice, it is not doom and gloom. It's time for us to start taking advantage of the policies. And one of the things that we talked about when we were at the All Black National Convention, which Jade, you so eloquently moderated that panel, is money talks, bullshit walks. So regardless of who's in office, it's about our collective power economically, right? So let's talk about the policies, and let's start with the economic policies that Trump is planning to put in place, right? So when we look at the economic policies, first thing is the tax cuts and the job acts. We're going to get major tax reforms that lower the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% and create new tax brackets for individuals. Now listen, Black people. Now, here's what happened under Biden. Let me just tell you really quick. When everybody went out there to get their LLCs a couple of years ago after COVID, they started putting policies in place to fine people like us $500 every day for not registering our LLCs and our businesses, because Black people start catching on, and we're now there are so many tax breaks for people who have businesses, for corporations. So what does that mean? We need to start getting our corporations. We need to start owning our own businesses. And so instead of being victims, oh no, the people who own corporations, they're going to get all the tax breaks. The fuck? We got to start getting our own corporations, right? That's one of the things that we got to do. Jay, let's talk about it.
I'm sorry, y'all.
You taking your mushrooms?
No, I'm just trying to drink coffee because I'm with you, Constance. You're making so many great points. I'm just really trying to find a silver lining in this. And honestly, this is the same thing that the Black Business School has been talking about, telling, Black folks to do for so long. And it's like, if we haven't done it by now, I don't know what else is going to take. But yeah, there are policies out there that we could use to empower ourselves and our businesses under, I guess, this new upcoming administration. But there are also things out there too that are on the books that also could benefit us. But it just takes due diligence, discipline, and actually going out and taking advantage of those policies. Mm-hmm. So under Trump, I know a lot of business people were saying under his last administration, Trump was good for business. He was good for folks who had businesses. So the more businesses we get for, right now and streamline those businesses, then maybe we'll take advantage of that. Yeah. Right. I just hope that we actually catch on this time, because the resources and the abundance is there. It exists.
Come on, say that. As a business owner, as a corporation, I own corporations and LLCs. 35% going from 35% to 21% is huge. And then you have the deregulation of a lot of because every time we have a Democratic president or administration, we get highly regulated on different things. You guys do notice that. So as business owners, we see those things being rolled back under a Republican administration. But when we talk about Black people, we do have the ability, y'all. We do have the ability to start our own businesses, to practice collective economics. When we look at these other communities and how long the dollar stays in our community, and when it was during the time of Black Wall Street, the dollar stayed in our communities for 1 year before it left. Over 600 businesses, the dollar stayed in our communities over 1 year. And you know what stopped that? Integration. When we no longer had to do business with one another, we stopped doing business with one another. And then the dollar went from 1 year. So there's no other group of people, not one, that has a dollar circulating in their community for a year. You have the Jewish, you have the Asian, you have the white, you got 20 days, 30 days, 17 days, but you have no other group whose money stayed in their community over a year before it left. Today is what? 6 hours. Okay. So we have everything we need inside our community to be able to do it, because 2025, $1.7 trillion we're increasing in our spending power. In 2025, it's projected to be $1.7 trillion. Dr. Felice, why we ain't doing business with us? And how can we benefit from these policies, these economic policies? Unmute yourself, baby.
That's my pet peeve, y'all. And I'm trying not to get on the soapbox, because I do my best to make sure that I keep money in the Black community and I don't give up on Black, right? Because it's apples and oranges. And one of the things that I think we're going to need to do is we need to support more Black people in their quest to start businesses, because one of the things that Black people do is that we start from scratch. A lot of white people don't start, but they don't start from scratch when they're starting a business. So that's an apple to an orange, right? It's very hard to start a business. So we got to start championing around Black people to say, hey, I got your hand while you grow this business, where we have things in place that help Black people not just start a business, but keep their businesses. And so we ought to do that. And then we have to be more intentional and make a commitment to stay and buy in our Black communities. Like you said, there's no reason for us to go outside our community. But I know Black people, you got Louis Vuittons, y'all got them red bottoms. Where's your Telfar? Where's your tote and carry? Like, we need to start researching and buying Black. And in fact, why not? Because I know my bags that I get that are Black, they fly as all get out. They look better than Louis. They look better than Louis, and they real leather. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, why are we not being more intentional about keeping the dollars? And then we give up on each other real quick because it's apples and oranges, right? We don't have the capacity to match our talent. And so what happens is, I say I'm coming to your house and I don't, because I'm really good, but I don't have the capacity, but I give up. I can't work with Black folk. But you don't need to work with white people when they don't show up on time. You give them another chance.
Always.
We gotta hang in there, and we gotta know. And then we like, oh, well, Black people is too expensive, because it's apples to oranges. I have to pay more to be in business.
It's a Black tax.
Right. So I've got to give it back to you until you keep that money in my community long enough that I can give it back to you. And so we have to make an intentional commitment to make sure that we hang with one another and we use one another. And I do.
Yeah, we got to be intentional. But that is what's called a Black tax, because just like you said, and I'm so glad that you addressed it, Dr. Felice, is that we're starting from scratch. We're not getting businesses handed to us. Then we don't have the mindset to work with one another. So then we have this Black tax, because now our startup costs are way more than everybody else, because this was not handed to us. So those are very, very valid statements that need to be addressed, that in spite of, because let me tell you something. You go to a soul food restaurant and the sister might be a little rude and I ain't never going back again, but you will go to a nasty ass Chinese food restaurant, shit on the floor. They got an attitude with you and you taking your Black ass back. And that's the thing that I have a problem with when we have these self-hating Negroes that say, I don't do business with Black people. And I know you know them, because I know you got them in your family, because we all got them in our families. And let's go to commercial. We'll talk about it when we get back.
Fly Nubian Money is now on Spotify. Yes. We are on Spotify. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us. All you have to do is search Fly Nubian Money and we will appear. All of our episodes. Make sure that you leave a 5-star rating and reviews, so other people that come along and are looking for a good show to watch, they'll follow us too. If you are interested in being on Fly Nubian Money, sorry, I don't have any spaces. I'm just playing. If you are interested in being a queen or a king on Fly Nubian Money for the day, please reach out to me. I'm at info@realvirtual.net. That's info@realvirtual.net. Also, if you need help with your business, go ahead and send me an email for that too. Okay. I've said enough. Now back to the show.
I remember speaking at a church one day and I said, raise your hand if you ever heard somebody say, I don't do business with Black people. And everybody raised their hand. And I said, raise your hand if you've ever said, I don't do business with Black people. And folks raised their hand. I said, now take that same hand and slap yourself upside the head, because that was the dumbest thing I ever heard somebody say. Ever say no shit like that again. That's crazy as shit. But let's talk about the economics before we go to the next. Ooh, look at that. Before we go, I got a little excited. Before we go to the next policy, Moya, being that you are a tax professional, what is the benefit for us and how can we as Black people benefit from these economic policies?
So one of them that was actually pretty good under the Trump administration was the opportunity zones. And so what that allowed people to do is businesses that wanted to come into the community, they could it basically is a way for people who are ultra wealthy to I don't want to say hide their money, but it's almost along the lines of money laundering, where they take their million, 3, 4, 5 million, they invest it in a business, and then the investment that they have in the business, whatever their capital gains are, they get to keep all of that money tax free. So when you look at that, anybody that has the funds to do that, that is an amazing way to build wealth and to leapfrog. It's just that most of us don't have the income to do it. And it would also benefit. It had to be a business that was already designated, and that is in mostly urban neighborhoods, an opportunity zone. So that was the best thing that I saw them do from an economic standpoint that could have helped. I do ask the question of, are we educated enough in terms of to even partner together? Like just the dissension that we had to even come around a candidate, even, just the whole idea of like, how do we even get to that next step to say, now I want to go ahead and do business with you? I'm curious. I can't hear you, Constance.
Thank you. Thank you. That I'm so glad that you said that, because that's one of the core pillars that I have in everything that I do. I do the B1 real estate mastery training along with Dr. Boyce inside the Black Business School. And I'm not teaching just about real estate investment, because I mean, of course, 80% of wealth is generated through real estate, but I'm teaching these students how to work together, how to create joint venture partnerships, and how to work together so that we can build together as a community. More people need to be doing it. It's not about you get yours, I'm gonna get mine. No, that African proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you got to go together. We practice that inside the Black Business School, inside of our real estate mastery program, where we are going to go out and build our empires together. That's so important. So I don't just talk this shit, I walk this shit. Vanessa, what about you? What about the economic policies that you really like on what we've seen?
I'm going to say the deregulation is one of and of course the tax breaks. I own a corporation, so taxes for me are a grim time. So I'm going to say those are the best economic policies that I foresee as a business owner. And I think it's definitely a point to encourage people to go out and get familiar with owning a business, and also get their corporations, and also lean on the people around them in the circles. I know that personally, I have family members who don't call me and ask me for advice, but I have friends where we get together and we share crazy resources. Like we have dinner, we share resources, we
Good.
talk about politics. We turned our average going out to, a lounge or having drinks. Most of my close friends, when we meet up, we leave with some resources. We leave with some valuable information. We leave with some creative thoughts about our businesses. So I think
Love that.
changing that mindset, when we talk about, individual, what can we do as individuals, right? Because people sometimes think you have to go out, create a nonprofit, do all this stuff. But no, if we each took accountability, everyone on this panel knows someone, and we got 5 women, and we said we're going to meet up once a month, and all we're going to do is share resources, right? And you multiply that over and over again. I think that we can really change the trajectory of how we share income and how we recycle our dollars.
Yeah.
Additionally, like I'm a general contractor, and right now at this, I spent literally 4 hours yesterday and came up empty. And I'm gonna put it out here. We're doing an ADU, a 2-story ADU, and finding where to find black contractors. Let me tell you,
Hmm.
I spent 4 hours just looking. I'm like, where is that? I need a framing contractor. I need a drywall contractor. I'm looking for black businesses. It is so hard to find designated black businesses. Like, we have to do too much research to find businesses, and I still find them. But I'm saying, if there was, and if anybody knows some database, please drop it in the link. If anyone knows black contractors, please drop it in the chat. The producer will give it to me. But we have to be so intentional about researching. But it would be great to have a database of just all black businesses, and be more intentional so that we could shop more black businesses. A lot of times, like when I'm looking for things, I'm spending a lot of time looking for black businesses. The ones that I have found, I'll just keep using them over and over again.
Mm.
But I think that we live in a time where, you have Amazon and it'll come instantly. So we have to be serious about creating databases or sharing resources and information. So if somebody in the chat knows a database, or of some black owned contractors that I could use in Los Angeles, please drop it in the link, and let's do our parts and get together and grab 5 people, and let's
What?
share resources.
Y'all ain't got no black chamber out there?
We do, but I've reached out to them. I'm waiting on an email. But specifically, I do have one. I found one. I have one black owned drywall company that I use. But
Good.
just in general, right, it's really difficult to find all the trades. Or I have some
Yeah.
people that have the trades and they don't have the insurances and bonds. And so I'll send them emails about getting help with that. But in general, it's very difficult to find
These are the
in
jobs
my field.
that Trump said was taken away from black. Those are the black jobs that Trump said that the Hispanics were doing. Remember?
Yeah, but yeah, I know they're out there. A lot of them are in the Bay. Shout out to the
Yeah, I
Bay.
got
Y'all
folks in the
go
Bay
hard.
that do it. I got folks in
Yeah.
the Bay that do it. Good shit. And somebody said in the comments, why you always cursing shit, sis? Because this is some good shit that we talking about right now. This is really, really good shit. Anyway, let's go to the next policy. let's go to let's go to the immigration policy. Okay, so the border wall. This was a biggie. Everybody's mad because of the border wall that Trump promised when he was president the last time, that he was going to close the wall. He's going to make Mexico pay for it. But I think even more so when we have all these immigrants that are coming into the country, when we see on the news, New York, Chicago, this big influx of immigrants who are not only coming in, but they're getting this financial support. And so people are really upset about that. We had the travel ban initially banned entry from several predominantly Muslims. That's very racist, but it was later revised, and then increased immigration enforcement. ICE. So they're going to increase ICE. So what do you think that this is better for the country? What are your thoughts, Jay?
I know so many Black people that are applying to jobs at ICE because they want to participate in mass deportations. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. Um, the big influx, first of all, the border is a problem. They should have been handled that. Trump should have did more while he was president about the border, and things only got worse under the current administration. I personally do believe that this influx of illegal immigration, they call them migrants, but it's actually illegal immigration, harms not only the country but also the Black community, because folks are getting resources and they're sort of leapfrogging Black Americans in order to get resources. So it's not sustainable for America. In terms of like some of the things that Trump says, I believe that this time around, I mean, he has so much support in the way that we're seeing Congress look, the way that we're seeing like the all of the support that Trump has at the Supreme Court level. I do think that there will be a major overhaul in immigration and immigration policy. Now, again, a lot of folks who are immigrants or of immigrant backgrounds did vote for Trump. But one of the things that I'm learning is that a lot of these so-called American minority groups, right, that have immigrated here of all races, many of them are okay with stricter immigration policies. I'm seeing and hearing from a lot of folks from immigrant backgrounds saying that, yeah, illegal immigration is bad, right? They don't want more people coming into America because it's just this whole web of people trying to get what they can get, resource wise, and just, being gatekeepers to white supremacy. Mm-hmm. So that is what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing from folks. And we're seeing that while Trump is saying he will massively deport people, a lot of these immigrants see themselves as white. So they don't really see that as applying to them. So let's see what happens next.
Yeah, it's a lot of fear mongering going on. And they're saying that these people are coming over and they're raping your women and they're, murdering your kids and all that stuff. And the numbers are that that's not happening in the way that they say it. But this is speaking to, these are dog whistles to their base. For you, Dr. Felice, being that you are a therapist, what does that do for people? Or how are people, how's that resonating with people, with the voters?
I think that is causing fear. Like you're inciting fear, you're triggering that scarcity mindset in people, right? And so then people become survivalists. And when people become in survival mode, we get very selfish when you're a survivor. It's all about me, 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 me. And what really bothers me about that is that we're kind of looking at the border, but we took in a lot of people from the Ukraine. We took in a lot of people from the Iraq area that time. We put them all on those planes and stuff and brought them over here, and they had apartments, jobs. Their children got escorted to their schools. So, we're concentrating on the border, but then what about these other people who are allowed to come into our country with just and handed a passport when they get over here? We don't say nothing about them. and that they're coming over here and getting it too.
Because they're white.
So I'm like, look, either you an equal opportunist or you're not. So
No.
I really don't have an issue. Okay. Like I don't have an issue. If you're not going to watch all the immigrants who come through here, then
They're
you're
not.
not going to watch none of them.
Not the
And
white ones.
so that's where I'm at. And so I just think it just builds on people's fear. And
Yeah.
then what do people do? We don't take care of each other when we're in fear mode. It's
Yeah.
all about me. But then what happens too? We suffer
Mhm.
from that. And so a lot of people, a lot of clients, like they're just in fear mode.
Yeah.
And I have to do a lot of mindset work
Yeah.
and
That's good.
cognitive behavior therapy to get people to reframe their thoughts so that they can see things properly. Because there's always another way to look at things. It just is. And at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, but we're making it. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it can't be better. But today, are you making it?
I'm making it.
You making it. And
I'm
so you're letting and thinking and taking in all these negative messages that are causing you to live in this reality that you don't have to live in. And so you got to really, really watch how you let your soul take in data.
That is so true. And you know that just like you said, like we're not seeing them regulate the borders or white people coming in. These people are deathly afraid of the browning of America. And that's just the bottom line. They don't want to become the minority. But here's what black men, this is what I'm giving you permission to do right now. Okay? Y'all ready? I wouldn't have said this before, but impregnate as many white women as you can. And let's do it that way. Because that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of more of y'all being the majority. So if they don't want to let the Mexicans in and they don't want to let the Africans and the black people in from other countries, just go on and get these white girls pregnant. Moya, what do you have to say about this whole issue of the border?
I'm having trouble unmute myself because I'm over here cracking up. Constance, what? Oh my goodness. So one of the things is I feel a different way about the border. I feel a different way about immigration. Vanessa brought up the fact that California is the top 5 economy in the world. One of the main reasons, if you look at the top states, the top 5 states, I think it's California, Pennsylvania, Texas. Those are the top states that have the highest GDP or the highest gross domestic product. And also look at the states that have the highest amount of immigration. It's going to be the same states because there is a correlation between the amount of people that are here as immigrants and the amount of money that businesses can make and generate. So we have to ask ourselves what we're going to do. So there was a tweet that went around that basically said, so basically you're saying, Elon, that within 2 years, we're going to have a correction because we're going to get rid of a mass deportation. The economy is going to go down, but in 2 years or so, it's going to correct itself. And Elon typed back, yes, basically that's right. So they know what's going to happen and they know how much in terms of economic impact that immigrants have on our society. So I think it's really interesting. And I always have an issue with this whole Black jobs, the immigrants are taking our Black jobs. I just feel like it's an old trope that's been going on for years, and Black people have elevated in so many ways in terms of access to education, in terms of jobs, in terms of business ownership. So I just feel like it allows us to replay that same idea over and over and over again. And it feels like we fall for it.
Yeah. Naomi, you did hear me right. I typically wouldn't support Black men impregnating white women, but just for this cause, just to get us, even playing field, I would go ahead and say yes. But Vanessa, what do you? And I know we got to get through the policies. But Vanessa, what are your thoughts around the immigration? Because I know that you are very familiar with this.
Okay, so I'm going to piggyback off that, right? Looking at all the states' GDP, but I'm going to just stick to California, and I grew up in Minnesota too, so I'll talk about those too. But undocumented immigrants bring in 8.5 billion in tax revenue for the state of California. I'm going to say that again, 8.5 billion. So if we're talking about an economical issue here and tax revenue generation, which generally is how most states are funded, right? So when you look at your school districts, when you look at your parks, when you look at most of that is coming from state funding, it is not federal funding. So when we look at a state like California and we're funding 90% of our school districts through our generating of state tax revenue, and you look at the correlation between the immigrant population, I mean, you have to acknowledge the correlation there. I feel like for most people complaining about the immigrants coming in, taking over, those are isolated areas, and you probably should follow up with your local and state government of how they're running their their city or their town, because that probably has to do with the lack of funding from your police or whoever that's going on at the state and local level of not getting ahead of that issue before it becomes an issue. California is one of the most diverse states that I've ever been in. And I think that if we removed our immigrant population, it would literally, I mean, I said 8.5 billion, that's a lot of money. It
Yeah.
would literally almost take our economy down to being a global competitive market to probably somewhere on the playing field of like 30, 40. I'm just guessing that it'll be a significant difference. And also I agree with Dr. Felice, right? We have to be careful and mindful of the divisiveness that we're being fed about when we say immigrants, because we all know when we say immigrants, when they say immigrants, what picture comes in your head. And if a brown person pops in your head, then you need to redo your thinking. Because if you're not thinking that same way about Ukrainians that are coming over or any other race that is white, then you got some deeper issues to
Of
resolve
course.
within you. So we have to recognize when we're being played, and we
Yeah.
have to look at the money. Look at the money. Because Louisiana, all these states that are like, oh, pro red is
They're
immigrant is a
poor as
problem.
shit.
Don't thank you. They are the states that don't got no damn money for their schools.
Or
They're the,
education.
yeah, or yeah, right. So we got to look at the money, follow the money, make it make sense. If you run a business, guess what? Immigration is good for you. If
Yeah.
you run a business, immigration is good. Period. I don't care.
So I thought it was funny because Jade, you're from DC. She activist. You hear me? Activist. And she's out in California right now. And
I
one of
am.
the things that she's doing, y'all, there are programs out there specifically for African Americans, okay, that Hispanics have taken on and that are utilizing, and that they are saying that black people are using them. There's funding, but black people aren't benefiting from them. And she out there, she the popo, she the police. So how does that correlate with what's going on with these immigration laws, or how does that relate?
There are a lot of resources that are, I mean, first of all, let me say that Black folks, we are very organized. And I'm seeing a different level of organization, like
I love it.
systemically, from the with the Hispanic community, particularly in schools. Like I'm seeing that they like there's a lot of state funding that are, they're opening up, schools, charter schools are opening up all around the country, and many of these charter schools are being created with the intention of providing safe spaces and for learning for Latino students, right? And so it definitely relates. I mean, when we talk about affirmative action, we talk about Title IX schools and all of these different things. I'm seeing it show up in a way that Black kids are sort of being pushed out of the conversation, as well as Black teachers, staff, administrators as well. And so we're seeing homogenous schools being built around the country that are, folks of the same like Latinx background or whatever. And then we see our kids sort of sprinkled all around. And then also we see teachers and that are fighting for positions, right, to move up into leadership. And it's just, I don't even know how to put it, but what I do know is as long as our kids are in public schools, I'm going to be in public schools nationally to advocate for them, as well as for Black educators, making sure that they also have access to be in spaces with our kids. So a lot of these policies that we have advocated for as it pertains to equity, justice, and civil rights have sort of like backfired in a way where we are left out of the conversation. And this is why organizing is so important. This is why school boards are so important. PTAs are so important. We have to be present and make sure that we are fighting for those resources and making sure those resources stay within our community.
They're leaving. They are leaving, and I can say time and time again, when I grew up born and raised in California, and every time we had things specifically for Black people never took advantage of it. I remember going to a training for for government contracts for African Americans in San Jose. I'm from San Jose, California, and it was a room full of people. The only black people that were in there, this is 4 black people. The only black people were in there was me and the organizers. Everybody else in there was Hispanic and Filipino. Not one black person in there. So they have these programs specifically for, and this has been my life, y'all. Everything that we've ever had, black people just weren't taking advantage of it when I was there, when in San Jose. Every time I went somewhere that was specifically for black people, Asians were showing up, Hispanics were showing up, black people wasn't showing up. Let me ask you, Dr. Fleece, do you have a heart out? Do you got to get out? Okay, cool. Jade, I know you got to go. I want to continue the conversation tonight. I'm gonna go live again tonight about 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. I want to continue the conversation with y'all if you guys have time. But Jade, I know you got to get to your anti-black policing. I want you to give us a final thought before you go.
My final thought is we still have, I don't know however many more months until January, until the Trump administration comes into office. I know that we can expect a lot of executive orders, possibly from this current administration with Biden Harris. And then we're also going to see a lot of executive orders on day one. The best thing that we can do right now is protect our energy, protect our minds, and continue to be active and actively and activated in the community, within our businesses, within our homes, starting businesses, getting our finances in order, because no matter who's in office, we're still at war. We are still Black folks at war with white supremacy. And we have to make sure that we're being very constructive with our attention, with our time, and what we're doing. So at the end of the day, life is going to keep life in, but how we show up is ultimately what's going to make the difference. So, I call Biden Lucifer, and I've been calling Trump the Antichrist, right, for years. At the end of the day, I'm still Black and we still have work to do. So moving forward, that's my final thought. But I look forward to continuing the conversation on with y'all. Vanessa, I am in town. I would love to see you. It's been a pleasure, Moya, Constance, and Dr. Fleece.
Listen, Jade is my sis, and I love everything that you're doing out there in the world. I'm so proud of you. Keep up the fight, sis. I'll see you when you get back to DC.
Let's do it. And I'll be reaching out, Jade. We're going to do lunch.
Okay, I love it.
All right, bet. All right, y'all. So I want to get through these policies because, again, this whole conversation is about, listen, at this point, and I ain't even been looking at these motherfucking comments, right? Because I don't even want to see what people got to say. I haven't even looked. I don't even look at it. I don't care. But we got to make lemons out of lemonade. Okay, so this is what it is. White people have spoken loud and clear. Hispanics have spoken loud and clear. Okay, and then Democrats have spoken, and because they did not come out to vote in the ways that they have in the past. Everybody has spoken based upon what they want. So the question is, how do we take advantage, and how do we benefit from these policies that are getting ready to be put in place? What we do know is that when in schools, when they talk about regular real history, he's talking about defunding schools. We do know that he's talking about giving immunity to the police. And I just want to share a story, and I posted it on my Instagram, you guys. If you guys follow me at I am Constance Carter on my Instagram, I shared a story of last year how my son, who was 18 at the time, or he was maybe 19, how he was driving his Lexus, young Black kid, honor student, he's going to go to law school. And how he was driving. I was in California at the time, and how he was coming, from visiting his girlfriend, and he got pulled over by the police. So he says, "Mom, police pulled me over." And I was like, "Okay." So I said, "Well, put me on FaceTime." He puts me on FaceTime, and we just chopping it up. It's about 5 minutes before the police come. And then when they come, they put a gun. This police officer starts yelling and screaming. That's all I heard. I'm sitting there in California, and I'm looking, and my son is like, "What did I do? What did I do? I'm sorry. Begging for his life with a gun to his head for driving while Black. And my son said that the only thing that I could think about is, please don't let me die while my mom is watching me on FaceTime. Okay. And if my son, and all I could think of is, son, please. And I didn't say nothing. I was quiet, but all I could think of is, son, please don't make a wrong move. I just need you home. And imagine if my son would have made a wrong move. And to think of what Trump said, that he wants to give to police officers is immunity. So that type of thing scares me. It scares me. I got 3 Black sons. That scares me. But let's think about what we can benefit, how we can benefit at least from some of the policies of this upcoming administration, at least with health care. Okay, so he's talking about repealing the affordable care, affordable. It's so funny because when he was his first go round, he's talked about how he could we're gonna repeal Obamacare, and then when he got in there, he was like, oh, this is quite difficult. I didn't know that this was it's pretty difficult to put a healthcare plan together, but they want to repeal it. They want to do short-term healthcare plans and allow for the expansion of short-term. This and when you have capitalism inside healthcare, it breeds for disaster. Drug price reform. So sign orders aiming at lowering drug prices, including requiring certain discounts for insulin. Is that what he's repealing? I don't know. So let's talk about the healthcare policies that are going to be under Trump. How is that going to affect us, especially since you're a doctor, Dr. Felice? And I don't know if people use insurance when they come to you, but how is that going to affect the average American?
So, especially around mental health, that's kind of different now. It's gotten a lot better where insurance does pay for mental health. But there's a lot of people out here who can't afford therapy because they don't have insurance. And I know y'all think Obamacare is great. I don't. I personally don't think it's great. I think that you have to be in poverty in order to be able to afford Obamacare. Like, you can't be making anything in order to go on that website, healthcare.gov or whatever that thing is. Like, it's very expensive if you make a decent salary. And then when you look at what's offered to you, I need y'all to go out there and look at the marketplace and see what's offered to you and what they call insurance. And so a lot of people, for me, they can't afford me. And so I have to go on certain sites that says that I will allow people to see me for a lesser rate that they say that they can afford. Now, that is relative, right? Because we got people who got smartphones and Jordans and say they can't afford to be able to take care of their mental health. But that's another story. But I'm just saying that in terms of healthcare, I don't think it's that great. And I'm hoping that, I don't know the specifics about, so I cannot speak to what Trump is getting ready to do with healthcare and what it's going to look like. So I can't speak to that. I am hoping that it is better, in my opinion, than Obamacare.
Okay,
cool. I don't think it's great. I don't think Obamacare was great.
Okay. Vanessa, did you say you wanted to speak on the police brutality?
Well, yeah. I mean, Trump. I mean, first of all, Constance, my heart. Like, I'm sorry that your son and you had to go through that.
I had a video. I showed his face.
Yeah,
tears streaming down his face.
That's just yeah. I just can't even literally imagine as a mother. But speaking of policy, so Trump has something called the First Step Act. I believe it's called the First Step Act, but it's basically his approach at, you know, lowering, taking away mandatory sentences, time for mandatory sentences, and reducing recidivism. I mean, I don't know. It's a bunch of BS, but the whole point is, honestly, it's just directed at the federal level, right?
Yeah.
That's the main point. So the issues that mainly affect Black people are at the state level. But I will say that we have to, in terms of reform, you know, when Kim Kardashian got behind him in his last administration and started pushing for the release of Alice Johnson, who was a lady that went to prison for a long time for a nonviolent drug offense, and he released her. I think that we really have to start having conversations and, you know, doing things like we talked about, like what Ice Cube did, is getting in front of even the clown and saying, okay, well, we see this act, we see this reform act that you're trying to put together. We released Alice Johnson, so how can we work to get other people released and look at certain offenses less? In terms of funding the police, unfortunately, if you look through every history of the presidency, it doesn't matter Democratic or Republican, giving police more funding has never been a good thing for Black people. It doesn't matter Democrat, Republican, all that is out the door. So, I mean, and unfortunately, in like Constance, in your situation, there's nothing that your son could have did to avoid that. So our black women and men, there, you know, when people say, you got to listen to the cop, you got to do this, sometimes there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do because you're not doing anything wrong, because the person that is arresting you or pulling you over already has his mind made up. So, I mean, I think for this, we just got to really look to our building relationships with our local police departments. Like, we really have to go in locally and start showing our faces and getting them into the community to try and undo some of the thinking of the police officers at the federal level. It's a wrap. The
Yeah.
money's going to come. So, that's the only thing that I can really think of that we can do, in addition to putting plans together to get people released for nonviolent drug offenses like we did Alice Johnson. But I mean, it's coming. The money's going to come. So we just got
Yeah,
to
it's a
work at
lot.
the local level.
It's a lot. Moya.
Yes, so I just wanted to respond to the comment that was put up in regards to feeling like police immunity wouldn't happen. So, one of the things that we have to understand that's really unique about this situation is that the Republicans have control over our entire governmental system. And what that means is they have an executive. So, we have three parts mainly: we have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the what is it, the federal branch, like the branch of Congress, but there's an official term for it. And so, as thank you for this, so that they have control over the Senate, and we're still waiting on whether or not they're going to have control over the House. And so, when we look at what it takes to have a bill passed, is it has to go through those main three parts: the Senate, the House, and the executive branch. And if there's any issues, then we can take it to the court, and the court can either strike it down or uphold it. And so he has access and the ability to have any of the laws that he has set forth that he would like to happen. And so this police immunity, the stop and frisk, all of these things are very real things that he has the ability to happen without signing executive orders, but with actually making a bill and turning it into law.
Boom. He got the House. He got the Senate. He's the president. So 100% it could happen. So don't think that the Police Immunity Act won't or can't happen, because it absolutely will. Okay, let's get to the last one. I think this is the last policy. No, we got a few more. Okay, we're gonna have to just go through these real quick. Energy and environmental policy. He wants to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, pull the U.S. out of the global climate peace. So, Republicans don't believe in global warming. They believe in what do you call that? Hacking. What is that called? And then they believe in coal, like coal mines where people are getting cancer all in their lungs. They want more of that. They want more coal. They don't want clean energy. They don't believe in clean energy. So they want to get rid of it. The whole Environmental Protection Act. So what are your thoughts around that, Moya? Fracking. Yeah. What did I say? Hacking? Yeah, fracking. I was close.
I think it's something that we have to really look at. I mean, when it comes to the hierarchy of issues that are important to me, that would be one of the lowest ones in terms of like environmental, because I just feel like we have so many more important issues that we have to get across. My biggest thing is how we can exert our freedom so we can live the life that we want to live. And so I definitely know the importance of it.
Yeah, good shit. What about you, Vanessa?
I mean, I think the environment is important. I mean, I think it's important with the type of world that we leave to our children, right? We're going to die. The earth will still be going on. But I think the air that we breathe, and, it's important, the corporations that people work at, that they have rules and regulations that don't affect people's health care. Because in addition to, you have rules and regulations that affect the healthcare, and then you want to repel the healthcare system. Now you're putting folk in debt through the healthcare system, because it's literally, you can't afford to pay when you get sick. And so I think the environment can create a multitude of other issues that'll run and hurt our communities. But also at the state level, wherever you are, your state legislator also has certain things in place. Like in California, we just passed a bond measure that says that we want to put more money. I think we did a $10 billion bond or something that we're going to put towards environmental care and so forth for the state of California. So we can always remember that there are levels to this, guys. You can still care about the environment and get your state involved to put some of the state money towards the things that you care about as well. So
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
healthcare. But I was before we went live last night, I had to go grab my coffee, right? And it was warm, so I had to put it in the microwave. And I was like, shit, this is not healthy, this microwave. And that's what I was thinking as I was warming up. Everything causes something. And so is the Oh, I was gonna ask Dr. Felice, but she gone. She okay. So let's go to the next one. All right, foreign policy. America's first doctrine focus on reducing U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts and renegotiate. Now, I'm not mad at that. So they want to withdraw from the global agreements. Withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. North Korea diplomacy engaged directly with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un in efforts to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, though concrete agreements were limited. Recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, move the U.S. embassy. And so that was interesting to me, I thought, is that people were so upset about the current administration and what's going on in Palestine, but Trump agrees that we support Israel and not Palestine. So I thought that was interesting. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it was an issue of that we've seen what the current administration is doing. So it was like, I'm going to stick it to you because you didn't do anything to change it. When you heard most people say, we don't want to be in this war, this conflict, we want you to stop sending money. There are other American issues that we care about. And why do we always got to get involved in other people's stuff? And I understand that, like, Israel is our ally. But this at the same time, you have Netanyahu basically sticking his middle finger up at us saying, I'm not going to do whatever you say. So we can't continue to give you billions. And then when we tell you, all right, you need to chill out or you need to approach this a different way, and you just give us the middle finger and say, no, I'm going to do it my way. That's not the way that, it made America, it makes America look weak. So I feel like even with, and it makes us look like we're a little bit controlled by Israel, to be honest. So as a citizen, I feel like the way that the Democrats and Biden administration dealt with a lot of the foreign issues I was upset about, because you have billions going to these foreign entities. Mind you, in Israel, they go to school for free. They have free health care. I mean, there's a multitude of things that they have that we don't have. So why are we continuously giving billions and billions of dollars to a country that really doesn't need our help nor listen to us? So I mean, I can understand people's frustration with it, and I think that the US should stay the hell out of these wars and conflicts.
No, that's a great point, though. That's a great point because it goes back to, and this is what you guys talked about on the panel at the ABC, Vanessa, is that money talks, bullshit walks. Because when you talk about Israel, the Jews have less than 1% of the population, but they have more than 50% of the wealth, right? Money talks, bullshit walks.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we are in this conflict, because they control the government, because they got the money, because they got the power. They got the power because they got the money. So, Moya, what are your thoughts around this foreign policy?
I just believe that with the way that they've set it up to kowtow to these dictators. Like, it's just the way that it's set up. The people that Trump has around him are very similar to the people that Reagan had around him in the 1980s in terms of Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, and what they do. They basically would help them get elected and then go and lobby to dictators to say, we can put whatever interest you have, we can bring it right to the guy, and then he'll side with you. And just like you said, they had the money to reinforce and to pay. And so people did it. These are the same people that he has around him right now. So
yeah,
that's fun.
Money talks, y'all. This is what, if we don't get anything from this, white people ain't coming to save us. Social issues, they don't give a damn. We have to put our money together. We have to form pacts. We have to have some political power. And the political power is not by party. It's by money.
Facts.
Yes.
Because AIPAC don't care who they funding. They are not looking at you saying, are you a Republican or a Democrat? They're looking at you saying, will you push our issues? And guess what? If you don't push them, we will unseat you, like how they did Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush in those elections. So I think that's the point. It's like, we shouldn't. I always say that I'm a registered independent.
Me too.
A lot of people think that, okay, I'm a registered. I think that every Black person should be a registered independent.
Absolutely.
And I understand that in some states like Louisiana or some of the southern states, you can't vote in certain primary elections, so you have to pick one. Yeah, but I feel like make them work for this vote, and put a pack together. Like, we should all be donating money to a pack. What if every Black person we knew just put $25 in a pack, and then we got behind. We just started with a quarter of a section. Like, we start with like Georgia, Florida, or parts of California. We start with 3 states, and we basically you're going to push these issues in these states, and then you get reparations for those states, and then you move on. and you just build. You just build. And so I feel like we got to be more coordinated and get some money.
We
So I
do.
want to highlight off of what Vanessa said, because I feel like that's so important. Like Roe v. Wade, that was a 50-year plan. They have think tanks that allow, and
Go ahead.
and that's how these changes are made. So I feel like it's critical that we really understand how we make moves. And as Vanessa was saying, we have to work our way up through the court system, just like they work their way up to the court system and to the Supreme Court. We have to do the same thing by going to these progressive centered friendly courts and being able to get the what we need advanced as well. So I think that's really important.
100%. And then you think about this, the judicial appointments. You see how he stacked the Supreme Court. So this was the whole reason why he even ran for president, y'all. Okay. This man was convicted of what, 34 felonies. He's a convicted rapist. He's a felon. He's a felon. He's been impeached twice. And then the Supreme Court, what they do? Offer immunity to a president. He put the Supreme Court together. So then when he becomes president, now he's immune from having to serve time or having to pay for his crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's even more than just only he's the face that put it together. There's a group called the Federalist Society. They're on Yale's campus and they're on many other campuses. And what they do is they back these different, they have a whole pathway that they back different judicial appointments. And that's how, when you look at, I think 4 of them are on the Federalist Society. So, and if you don't vote according to who they say, then there can be repercussions there. So it's really important when we talk about truly organizing that we can truly organize, but we just have to have a long-term plan in place.
Right. Amen.
Can I just say something really?
Yeah.
Somebody just posted something about the Black Caucus, and I want to highlight that because I was reading something. Why don't you start with breaking up the Black Caucus? They are ineffective. So, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that whole statement, but I do know that they have, like, the Black Caucus was responsible for putting the second time on the bill ending prison slavery, right? What I didn't like is that on this bill that we just had in California, is that when you, with the bill read, ending ending forcing prisoners to work. So that's very different than when you actually read the bill, ending slavery in prison versus ending prisoners to work, right?
Mhm.
And so, anyhow, I was really surprised because California is generally progressive. The bill got shot down. So basically, what California said is like, no, they got to work for nothing. We want slavery. But then, so I think I admire some of the things that the Black Caucus does. I think that that's a valid thing to try and push an agenda to end slavery in the prison system, because we have to understand the way that the judicial system is set up to basically procure more prisoners to be in the slavery system. So right, so you have a judicial system that's set up to incarcerate Black people, and then you put them into slavery, right? And most of the time we all know some of the things are fair, right? Some of the things are fair and just. Some people deserve to have their ass in prison, but a lot of them are unfair, right? Non-violent crimes, small time drug offenses that if they were white they would have been sent to treatment centers, so forth. So we see a lot of that. So I think that we can't just automatically say the Black Caucus isn't doing anything. I would argue the opposite of how many people get involved with their Black caucuses, how many people have been to meetings at their Black caucuses. Because I guarantee you the same people that are arguing to break it up haven't even been to a meeting. They couldn't even tell you anybody on the Black Caucus or a bill that the Black Caucus have pushed. So we as Black people have to just stop saying, well, let's just get rid of the system when we ain't even tried to be in the system.
Hello.
We just want to talk. So I mean, a bill like that didn't pass in California, which lets me know that as a progressive state, if it's not passing in a state like California, then it's way far away than all these other states. So we got some work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we
And
really do have.
No, that's interesting, and I appreciate that, because now you challenge me too, because now here I am in DC, and so these are things that I could actually be involved in right here. And so for me, it says, okay, Constance, you need to go out and you need to get involved in Black Caucus events outside of the parties that come around once a year where I'm shaking my ass. So thank you for that, Vanessa. Let's go to the next policy. Let's talk about education. Now, this is where school choice. I'm not mad at school choice, and I'm not mad at voucher programs. I'm really not. Charter schools. My kids went to an international baccalaureate program school after they came out of a private school. I'm not mad at school choice. I am mad at them trying to whitewash history and not telling the truth. What are your thoughts around education? And to be honest with you, honestly, the Board of Education has failed.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What do you think? I mean, because where do we rank worldwide in our education? We're not number one.
Oh,
Are
we're
we? Are
far
we in
from
the
number
top
one.
10? Are we in the
I
top 10? Our education system has failed. And so again, these are things that I think that, when you're Democrat and Republican, it's like I'm not all the way okay with our education system. So do I just support the Democrats because they are with the Board of Education? They have no real solutions around reforming education. What y'all think?
I think the Republicans, their real solution is give parents the 7,000. It's as an example, the $7,000, the money that your child would get, and then you have the choice to go wherever you go. My only issue is then what happens to the kids that are in schools that don't have parents that are active? Do we just let them by the wayside? Do we just let them go? So then that we're okay with them going to prisons because they don't have because that's the pipeline, because they have a plan at every step of the way. They have a plan for our kids to go. So are we okay with that then?
So that means that we have to have more parental involvement, right? Because we got to be responsible for our own kids. Even in the education system, even if your kids go to the worst school in the county or in the district, their studies show that when parents are involved, it makes a difference in that child's education. So we have to be advocates for our kids. I have 4, and when they were especially in their formative years, I was like our whole family. When I was married, it was 6 of us, and during parent teacher conference, all 6 of us were going to every single parent teacher conference together. And then white people ain't never seen no shit like that before. When you have a family of 6 going to these parent teacher conferences, we were involved. When something came up, guess what? Mama was involved. I had to put these teachers on notice on several occasions, especially behind my oldest son. And they knew by the time other ones came up, we already know we ain't gonna fuck with that one because we already know his mama. But this is what we have to do as parents. So we got to stop relying on the school system to raise our children.
I completely agree. And we also have to stop relying on them to educate our children. I mean, in terms of them banning books and stuff, I feel like, and I'm just going off my education. I don't know if I wasn't really taught Black history in school to begin with. The only thing I was
The
taught was
very
slavery,
whitewashed.
right?
Slavery
Yeah,
and civil rights.
slavery and Rosa Parks and
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Luther King, right?
Mhm.
I learned my Black history from reading and from the people in my community, from my cousins, from my dad. So I think that we have to get back to educating our own people, and that goes to say too, Constant, what you were talking about is we have to get back to community, because like even now, like we had a show and it motivated me to start reading to my little cousin over Zoom every night, because her mom works a lot, so she's not able to read to her every night. We had a show about literacy where kids are failing, and basically I was like, okay, well, you could Zoom for 15 minutes every night with your little cousin and read this book to make sure that she reads every night. So that's the type of event. That's what we have to get back to. It can't be so individual if we're going to succeed.
Yeah.
But we can't. The current system of the school, it's failing our children, specifically in inner city schools. So like I'm a fan of charter schools. I'm a fan of, if you can be homeschooled and you can be taught and your parent has the capability and the time and they will pay you for that, I think that's a great solution.
Not
For
that.
the other children, we just have to get back to community. If you see, we have to be responsible for our village. And
Yeah.
that's just it. If
So
you,
go ahead.
So
Go
wait,
ahead.
I'm sorry. So my only issue with what you're saying, ladies, is that just we need to be responsible as parents. What about as a human? Meaning, like, what about other areas? But other areas we gladly depend on the government for, in terms of, oh, you're supposed to give me health care. Oh, you're supposed to give me access to business. You're supposed to give me access to funding. But what about our own agency in those spaces? So
Well,
that's my only issue.
when you talk about that, because
I don't think it's
when
viable.
you talk about access to healthcare, we're paying into healthcare. I'm saying that we're not saying give me. We're saying give me what I'm paying taxes for, right? And so when you talk about the education system, for me, I know like when you said like I didn't learn Black history, it is a big deal, because even if they do have these public schools, they need to be teaching Black history, but they're not going to teach the right Black history. And I know like when every time I would take my kids to the movies, they'd be like, oh no, we know we about to see the movie on Black people. Or every time I say, come on kids, gather around, we about to go watch, oh, it's another Black movie. Absolutely. It's up to us as parents to make sure that we are educating our children. The problem is the parents are educated and it's trickling down. But I do believe that it's on me. I'm their mama. Ain't no the teacher ain't they mama. We send our kids to school and we expect these teachers to raise our kids. They go in there, they bad as shit, they fighting, they doing everything under the sun, and then we mad at the school because we feel like they're not doing enough. So I'm not mad at that at all. I think there needs to be a total overhaul and reform of the Department of Education.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the church, listen, the black church is a staple. It's so, so I feel like that we could utilize the black church in so many other ways, right, for our community. So when the term that it takes a village, if we see that black children are failing as church leaders, it is their job as community leaders to put groups together, reading groups together, okay, math groups together, you know, what Brother Nuri was saying at AMBC was just phenomenal. I actually reached out. I want to see if Sanaa can go to a weekend school, my daughter. But I think when we start teaching our children about Black history and about who they are, then everything else will fall in line because I mean, the type of confidence that you gain knowing about your history is unprecedented. So it's our job to do that. It's nobody else's job to do that.
Yeah.
It's
And
our
Grace, ain't nobody
job.
said all of our kids is bad as hell, but there are a lot of kids out there that's bad as hell. So I didn't say everybody, but I said a lot of them. So let's go to the law and order. One of the things that is part of this reform is law and order. So there was a lot that Kamala was talking about how Trump mentioned that we should shoot protesters, that we should militarize more so the police and turn them against the citizens. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely going to be an issue that we're going to see how it materializes in reality, because a lot of Black people didn't believe it and they still don't believe it, but we're going to have to see how that happens.
I mean,
I think we should just look. I mean, look at the history. When you, like I said, you look back in the '69 from Lyndon B. Johnson, and then you keep going up to Nixon, you keep going up to Reagan, Bush, Clinton. And who cares about Republican or Democratic? It's all led to mass incarceration. It's all led to the divide of the Black family. It's all led to the gap wealth in the Black community. So we've seen it before, right? We know that these policies, when we see policies that put money into police, more government, more stop and frisk programs like that, we've seen this before. So now we can look at it and say, oh, that's where we're going. So how are we going to respond in advance as a community, right?
yeah,
How are the churches where you see a church on every corner in every Black community, how are they going to respond? Because when you go in church on Sunday, it's crowded. That's the best way to get the word out.
you got a
How are we
captive
going to quit?
audience.
How are we going to keep especially our Black boys from being introduced to this next level of mass incarceration? I
Yeah.
think that's what we have to look at. That's what we have to do as Black people for this response to this policy, because we've seen it before.
And here's what I know, right? I could raise my kids, and my kids are pretty good. You know, they trifling and lazy and all that shit. They play video games, but they're also really well behaved kids, especially out. You know, when people come to me, they say, you know, I seen your son, I seen your daughter, and oh my God, they're really good kids. So they ain't worth a damn at home, but in public, they know how to conduct themselves, which makes me really proud. And one of the things I know is that my kids can have their pants up to their neck. They don't have to be wearing a hoodie. They could be wearing a suit. They could talk proper. It doesn't matter. They are still Black at the end of the day. And it's really scary, especially to be a mother of Black sons, of how they're looked at. So there has to be, there got to be of course, a total overhaul, but there needs to be more community policing, because we know the origin of policing comes from slave patrolling. And so that's how they're looking at our children. That's how they're looking at us, as runaway slaves. They do things to us and our children that they would never think of doing to people who look like them. And I don't know. I mean, this is further exacerbated by this administration, and that's the scary thing. What do you guys think?
Well, it's definitely my first time hearing that they look at us as runaway slaves.
That's your first time? You didn't know?
Even the star, really quick, even the star, when you look at slave catchers, it's the same star as the sheriff carry. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about that, and it's so funny if you look at the origin of how they came about. When you had, because these Irish people always say, oh, we were slaves too, y'all was indentured service, but the way that they were able to separate white people to keep from rebellion is, oh, let's put these low class Irish people, let's make them the overseers. That way they think that they on our side. Really, they working for us for pennies anyway, but we gave them a little bit of authority. And now they're the overseers. Now they're the police officers. And that's kind of how that was the origin of that. But anyway, what do you guys think about the political? I think that's the last one, right? Yeah, that was it. What are y'all thoughts?
I mean, it's so
Y'all got kids?
overwhelming.
Y'all got kids?
I do. I have a daughter. But I have nephews. I mean, I'm scared for my nephew. My nephew is a good kid. I mean, I have two nephews. One of them played college ball. The other one, he's a good kid. But I worry about them because they're both tall. They're both got broad shoulders, and I feel like when people, I mean, when a police officer just having a look, you have this image of a black boy, and then you automatically, just go into, oh, he's aggressive, he's a thug, he's this. I mean, whatever runs through their head. So it is scary that we are giving police more power and to just be corrupt as opposed to giving them more training, more cultural sensitivity, more more education, right? I think that it's and I was reading a report and I don't know if it's 100% true. But it was saying that police officers, they recruit them based on like a lower IQ level already. So I just feel like it's important. Why are we throwing money and guns and more reasons for them to be aggressive and divisive as opposed to training them, and just going into the community and doing what police are supposed to do. Police are supposed to police the community. They're supposed to know their community. They're supposed to come from the community too. But we all know that the police that are in black communities don't come from the community, so they already are looking at a certain sense. But I mean, I think it's dangerous, Constance. I think
Yeah,
that the only thing that we can do is hopefully go as local leaders is basically try to build relationships with our local police stations
right.
and overstep the ideologies of sometimes when you meet a person one on one and they get to know you, that's the only way to kind of change that thought process. So
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a lot of work. And unfortunately, the burden is on us, even though it shouldn't be, because our kids are just normal kids that, they play basketball, they like baseball, they run around. I mean, they're kids, but
yeah.
they're not
So
looked at like that.
no, our kids aren't looked at as kids, like kids are looked at as predators. So Moya, what's the solution? Give me your final thought on what is the solution with a Donald Trump presidency, a Republican House and Senate. What's the solution for us as Black people? How are we going to thrive in this environment going forward the next 4 years?
So my final thoughts are in regards to what's happening is we have to look at what brings freedom to us. Like my biggest thing is to remove the idea of racism into race. Like Carter G. Woodson, when he founded and made Black History, it started off as a day, week, then into a month, that it was supposed to be something that was temporary. It was supposed to be something that allowed us to understand who we are, and we take all of that and then we express ourselves into society. But what I feel sometimes happens is when we give too much of our agency away or we selectively use our agency, it doesn't allow us to truly thrive. So I just want us to be in a place to understand that, like you said, Constance, hopefully this puts some fire under us that allows us to understand our Blackness. And once we have an understanding of our Blackness, to effectively go out there and to do and be what we really want to be.
Yeah, amen. Good shit. Thank you. Good shit for the people who don't like me cursing. Guess what? That was some good shit though, for real, right? Vanessa, your turn.
So final thoughts. We got our final thoughts because our producer's gonna get us. But listen, we got to pull together as a community. That doesn't have to look like you going out and doing a nonprofit. Set you a goal of 5 things that you're going to do. That could be tutoring some kids on the weekend, maybe tutoring your little cousin. That could be linking up with your friends once a month, sharing business ideas, sharing resources to encourage other Black people to have their own business, and just being a resource for whatever about business. Let's just start very small and be intentional about that. You can find me at Vigo Paul. I have my link tree on my Instagram and it has everything on there. Please always feel free to ask me questions, anything about policy. I love policy. I'm a policy nerd. or business, right? If you guys want to reach out to me and ask me any questions about business, please feel free to.
Good shit. Thank you.
FYI, Vanessa really is the queen of resources, though. So if you really want to look and to see what resources out there, contact Vanessa.
Thank
Real
you.
good shit, Vanessa. Thank you. I must say, when I woke up this morning and I seen that he was the president, I was like, oh my God. Because I really didn't believe, I really believe that we were more progressive as a nation. And I knew that there was a lot of crazy motherfuckers out there, but I just thought that we were more progressive. But what I immediately went into was, what's the solution? How can we be shielded? How can we as Black people be insulated? And when you look at the Asian population, they have the lowest voter turnout, but they're the most insulated when it comes to these policies. Why? Because they practice collective economics. When you look at the Jews being less than 1% of the population, but have over 50% of the wealth. Why? Because I was listening to a guy named Solomon Barrow, and he said the reason why Jews stay wealthy is because, number one, they practice collective economics. Number two, they work with, they are business owners. They teach business ownership. They don't look outside their community for anything else. They talk money. Black people, we're not talking money on the levels that we need to talk about. We talking about everything else. We talking about what's going on in the shade room. We talking about what's happening on reality TV, but we're not talking about money. We're not talking about business in the ways that we need to. Now, I talk about money and business with my kids, but are you talking about money and business with your kids? And then go further than that and then start to talk about it with people in your circle, right? Now your family, your extended family, and then go outside and talk about it with your community. Everything y'all been on here. We got up to 800-900 people that have been watching and rolling with us this whole hour and a half. Okay, so y'all learned something new. I learned something new just by sitting with these ladies. Share this information with your circle, with your friends, with your family, because they need to know it. Don't keep it to yourself. And that's the reason why I love working with Black women, right? Because there's an African proverb that says, when you teach a man, you teach an individual. But when you teach a woman, you teach a whole nation. Black women, we are going to not only do it for ourselves and for our families, we're going to do it for our communities. We're going to do it for our country and our nation, and we're going to build. And so I have so much faith in us Black people that I think that this is going to make us more resilient and more stronger. And so I'm excited about the next 4 years. Fuck all that shit that they talking about, what Trump is getting ready to do. Fuck all that. We can be insulated if we can pull together. Black women, we put together what, $30 million? When Kamala became the nominee, we put together $30 million, Black women. If we can do that as a collective behind a common goal, then we can move mountains. And that's what we need to be looking at. So we appreciate you. Listen, you are listening to Fly Nubian Money. Every time we go live, if you want to get alerted, make sure you text the word Queens to 87948. That's QUEENS to 87948. And we are on Spotify. So go on to Spotify. If you can't watch us, you can listen to us. Search Fly Nubian Money on Spotify. And then last but not least, if you want to learn how to grow your money and not blow your money, go to flynubianmoney.com. And we are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be here tomorrow, same time, same bat channel. So make sure you tune in. All right. Take care and God bless. Thank you, ladies. Love y'all to death. Peace.